going to go ahead and get started. My name is Greg Kunzweiler. I'm part of the Center for Teaching and Learning. And then Dr. Candace Roberts is also a co-presenter with me on this getting off to a great start. With the semester coming up in a little over a week, there's a lot of things to get ready for the semester and things to think about, prepare. And all of us really want to have a great start to the semester. We want to have the best start with our students, the best start with our content and everything that we have going on. And so hopefully some of the things that we're going to talk about today will be helpful. Some nuggets that, we'll present, and then nuggets that you all can share as well. So this isn't going to be just Candace and I talking at you. We want you all to participate as well. And so we're actually going to use the annotate tool in just a minute, a few different times during the presentation to have you all interact with us. So what are we going to talk about? When we start to talk about to getting started off to a great start, I have to break things down into categories for my head and how this makes the most sense. And, the first part was organizational. Organizationally, how do I put my course together? How do I get things prepared and ready to go right off the get-go? Even before day one, what are those things organizationally I need to make sure I have prepared and ready to go? The second part we're going to look at is communication. How do we communicate right from the beginning, with our students? How do we communicate with them in class, face-to-face? How do we expect them to communicate with us? Those are the types of things to kind of think about as you're moving forward, especially in the first couple of weeks in your class. And then the last one we're going to do is building classroom community. And so we're wanting to, it's great when you're organized. It's great when you communicate well. But to me, one of the most important pieces to having a successful class is being able to build that classroom community. And so we're going to give you all some tips and hopefully hear some of the things that you all do in your courses to build that classroom community. And then we'll give a few different resources, a few articles, and then a couple of the websites on our website, which I forgot to put them on here, but we'll link to those as well. All right, so one of the big things, and actually let me see if I can clear out the annotation. So one of the big things when we're starting out and getting started is first impressions. That saying that you only get one shot for a first impression. And a lot of these students, a lot of times we haven't ever met before. And so you have one time to be able to put your best foot forward in the first impression. It's, there's the first impression you can think of, like that first initial email that we send, that first initial glance into our course or our course shell, the first glance at our syllabus, the first opportunity when we start to talk about ourselves and introduce ourselves, or the first lesson that we do in class, when we give them the expectations in our class. All those kind of get wrapped up into what that first impression is. And so being able to think through all of those things absolutely to me is important. So first question, so for us to annotate on, in what ways do you get organized before the beginning of the semester? So when you're preparing your classes, what are some things that you do to try to get organized or prepared for? So with the semester starting in a little over a week, what are those things actually exactly a week, right? Today, or yesterday, it was Tuesday. If you have a Tuesday, Thursday class, I guess. What are the things that you prepare for or get organized? Load the syllabus into D2.
So Greg, one thing that I do, I know our ICC courses are opening for the students, and they really like when I put the grades in for students. The assignment dates underneath each of the assignments in the ICC shelf, because it pops up on their calendar, and I didn't know that it did that. I just had it in the syllabus, so that's something different that I've done this year.
Absolutely. That's good. That's good. See, revise the syllabus, check previous feedback. Absolutely. From course or midterm. Check my syllabus alignment with a course. Good. Send a welcome message to in D2L with a few details about the first class meeting. Good. Any others? And don't feel like we have to annotate on top, just like Christine did, where she just shared out. Absolutely. This is a conversation that we can have. So feel free to share as well. Try to prepare my first few days of presentations. Good. Absolutely. All right. Any others? All right. So let's go ahead and let me clear this out. And we'll move on. All right. So one of the first things to do, and a couple people mentioned it, was getting your course shell organized. So like Christine mentioned, putting in those due dates for the first few assignments or a bunch of assignments, going ahead and putting those in. One of the big things too is being able to leverage your course shell that helps get it organized for the students. So this is one example of an instructor in SLU 125, Joanne Crossman, who put hers together by week. And so you can see, you have week 4. And actually what she did in her actual course shell is she actually put even the dates. So she's teaching a hybrid course this next semester. So her Tuesday class is going to be in the classroom. Her Thursday class is on Zoom. And she actually will have the due date or the dates of that week. That are, keep accidentally clicking that, are there. And then you can see the information that it's in here. And so this is organized really well by week with the due dates once she puts those in for the students. There's not sure about when things are or where things are or whatever. The students are clear, because all of their documents, she puts all their PowerPoints in here, all of her assignments go in there, her grades go in there. All of the resources that she shares gets put in here. And so it makes it really organized in a way that helps the students. And so being able to stay organized in the course shell is really, really helpful. There's other different ways that you can organize your course shell. Yesterday I presented and showed another one by topic. Some people do it by chapter. And so there's a lot of different ways to set up your content, but
Greg, could I ask, is all of that under content in D2L? I mean, is that where most people set it up?
That's where, yes, that's where that one is. It's all under, I didn't have enough room, but it is under content. So under the table of contents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So really what I usually tell an instructor is figure out how you think this class will make the most sense to the students organizationally. And that's how you want to structure your content in the D2L course shell.
Yeah, thanks.
The next one is just planning out your class. Really important for setting up your class. So another question is, what do you all do on the first day of class? So on your first day of class, planning that out, what are some things that you all do? And feel free to speak up too, if you don't want to type it.
Do you mean when the students are already there, or before is that what you're talking about? Like the first day? Yes, like
the first day you show up. Yep. Whether that's in Zoom or whether that's a face-to-face.
Okay. Yep. So I do live sessions to review the syllabus and go very detailed, pretty much page by page and answering questions. So that's like the entire live session for the first week.
Okay, good. Thanks, Georgina.
I have for my intro class, which is mostly freshmen, I have developed this rather lengthy PowerPoint that creates a timeline. I mean, their assignment is they have to do a timeline of their life. And so I do an extensive one of mine, which shows a lot of experiences that I've had in sport business and their various places I've worked, which hopefully gets them excited about, the idea of of going into sport business, seeing kind of my experiences and such. So I do that every semester. Don't know if it serves the purpose that I intend, but seems to be things they remember. Oh, you're the guy with the hats. They have a different hat for every experience. So 2 years later, they'll say, "Oh, you're the guy with the hats." So
I think
Cool.
I think it makes a difference. I do icebreakers. I do Padlets every single beginning of the class before I even start looking at the syllabus, because it just gives the students the opportunity to kind of like take that deep breath, because they're all so tense and like don't know what they're going to confront. And it gives us a little bit of a leverage to, just allow them. I let them use video. I let them use memes. I let them use whatever. And the question is always, how are you feeling like right at this moment entering this course? And then they get to share what they feel. And it kind of just breaks the ice from there.
That's cool. I really like that idea of how do you feel, towards at the beginning of the semester. That's a great idea.
And then
I
you
love
get to do the
icebreakers.
post one too, Greg.
What's that?
I do it. I bring that same Padlet up
Mhm.
with all the videos and everything. And then we do a post one to see like how did it feel to get done after 8 weeks? And the differences are always amazing and interesting to see.
That's cool. I like
Yes,
that.
Georgina, I do the same thing. I do a pre and a post question, and use their information at the end of the semester to share their growth with the students. I think they love that. Usually it's a drawing, draw a scientist, draw a historian, kind of icebreaker and getting to know you. I also like reading through their introductions and the discussions, as they introduce themselves within the module. It's always good to get a feel for who's going to be in your class, what their interests are. And I do find, though, that the first day of class, they seem a little overwhelmed when I review the syllabus. It just seems like it's so much technical data, and some of it may be just way above their head. I can see the spirals in the eyes, as they're watching and listening. And so what I generally do is I take the assignment and I copy and paste it into an Excel document and the date that it's due. And I just provide a brief overview synopsis of that assignment so they can see, all 7 or 8 or 6 assignments in one concise location. And then we'll go over it in detail as the course unfolds. But I just seem a little overwhelmed with that syllabus. It's such a lengthy document and filled with so much information.
Yeah. I do the same. I take out of the syllabus and summarize it. Yes. And then ask, do you want to go through it page by page? And most of the time it's a no. And then I tell them that we're going to go through it, every week the assignment is due, because I do live sessions on a weekly basis. So it gives them just that comfort level of knowing that more to come. And I'll tell you what else I do that I think the students like is that whatever introduction question I ask of them to post, I post my own response to that same prompt for the students. So if I ask them who's the most influential person, or for pics or whatever pictures, I do the exact same thing. I'll tell them who my most influential person is, and I'll provide a picture for them to see.
That's good. Thanks, Georgina.
Greg, well, you say that, and one thing that I always find useful is to do an activity that's going to resemble what the rest of the semester is going to look like. Like in my case, there are language courses, so you come here to learn the language. The only way you're going to learn the language is if you use it. Mm-hmm. So even in 111, even though they may not know anything other than baño, cerveza, and something else, I make them, it's not that I make them, I give an activity and I model what you could say when you meet someone new that, you haven't met before, or what would be like the 3-4 things you want to say. So they leave class happy because they could do it. And then it's okay, see, it took some effort, but you can do it. So, that's how we're going to go from now on every class. And that helps, because if the first class they leave without doing something related and productive, it's not, I don't know. I don't think it's a good sign for them.
That's good, a good activity to do. So thanks for sharing. Here's just a sample of a first day class that I've done before in the past where, just, right from the get-go, getting there early and trying to create a welcome environment, introducing yourself right away. I usually have a slide that I show with pictures of myself and my family, just letting them know who I am and, what my interests are and, even my background of being able to teach the class, kind of thing. So I don't spend forever on it, but just trying to go through some of that. And then I do an icebreaker where I'm trying to get the students, just like you all said, getting the students a chance to interact a little bit. And I'll talk about a few different options for for icebreakers as well. And then just sharing like today we will, I think it's good just to be upfront with the student. Like, here's what is expected today. Like today we will go cover this, and we're going to do two activities, and you all are going to break up into groups and not, and so I try to be transparent and upfront with them about that as well. And then on the first day, just going over clear routines and expectations. I think it makes people feel so much better when they know what's expected of them, what's the routine like, and then the expectations and the policies, depending on whether you're using just the school policies or you have your own, just trying to be upfront with those as well. And then I usually try to play some sort of syllabus game, whether it's a game where I even take the outcomes and I'll have them rank my outcomes in my class, which ones do they feel like are the most important and which ones not, or whatever, or doing some other sort of, I know I've heard Daniel and Karen talk about doing like a scavenger hunt or even a Kahoot quiz where and you can maybe do that in the second or third class, but something like that where they're going over what was in the syllabus, but making it fun into some sort of game, where the students have to search for it or have to know it, but you're putting it in some sort of gaming context. And then giving them the expectations for the next class. And so that's kind of just an example of a first day class. Here's some of the examples of just some icebreakers. Like bingo. I always love to do this one because then the students get a chance to learn some stuff about each other that they don't know. So you have the bingo sheet and you have things like I own an iPhone or I own an Android phone, or I've lived in another country, or I speak 2 or 3 languages, or, whatever. And so you put these kind of things on the sheet and then have them go around and sign it so they get a chance to know one another. The beach ball one is one where you have different things written down on the beach ball and you pass it around the classroom. Longest line could be putting the students in order. So, order of birth date or order of age or whatever, putting them in. Poker hand, I'm trying to remember now that one. It's different matches to different cards that you passed out in class. So they have to find certain matches and match it up. Content-based icebreakers. I know I've seen this before where, you put together an icebreaker around your own content. So for me, like my class is wellness. And so I may have the students do some sort of content, an icebreaker around what's their favorite active activity or something like that. They got to get together and talk about it. So there's a lot of different icebreakers. We have some links on our website and we'll share those at the end around the icebreakers. Here's one example of another icebreaker I do in the class on the first day is usually just ask them their name, where they're from, any physical activity they participate in. And then I usually ask these 3 questions. And so I learned best in class where the teacher does this. Students in the course help me learn when they do this. I'm most likely to participate in class when, and so I always find it interesting to hear the answers that the students do, because I usually have them pair up into groups of 3, or not pair up, get in groups of 3, and then they share this with one another, and then I have them introduce one another, and then they talk about those. I always joke with them whenever they say, I learn best in class where the teacher's funny. And I'll say, well, I don't know about that one. You're going to hear probably a lot of dad jokes and stuff. So, but, so it's just a way to hopefully get to know the students, but also get to know, what might connect with them as well. So one of the things that are really important too with planning your lesson out is adding some active learning. Icebreakers are part of that active learning, but putting active learning into your class. So obviously providing a safe environment, for students to engage in, building in some sort of active learning activity, every 20 minutes or so. They say your brain starts to even shut down after about 15 or 20 minutes. And so you got to get them actively doing something rather than just talking to them. And it can be totally built around your content. And so there's a lot of different options, but give the instructions, the activity, what do you want them to produce, have the materials prepared, use a variety of different strategies. And we have a whole website with a whole host of different options for active learning strategies that are on there. And these are 5 of the kind of major categories that you could say. I have a different session on this one, but think breaks, like where you have the students pause and they actually think about or write down what they've learned so far in class. Or you could have them do it even before. You could throw out a topic that you're about to talk about, and you can have them put down 2 or 3 things that they know about that particular topic. You could even have them, whether they do it by themselves or then they could eventually do it together and share with one another. So those are those think breaks. A lot of people talk, sometimes they call them exit tickets too at the very end, where they actually write down what they learned in class and then they hand that in. Student responses. So if you're using some sort of polling system, that's student responses. Just like I had you all doing responses using the annotate tool as well. Sometimes I have the students go to the whiteboards in the classroom and give me responses for different topics or activities. So that's all part of student responses. Student creations is just having them create something, having them create some sort of project, a paper, something that is around there. Maybe it's even just an image they work together or do it by themselves that represents some sort of topic that they've been learning about. Group activities. I love group activities where they get in groups of 3, 4, 5, and they do some sort of activity and then usually bring it back in to share it out with the rest of the class. And then lastly, simulations. And we have our world-renowned simulation specialist on today. And so absolutely, simulations are a perfect way to build in active learning into your class as well. So I highly encourage that if you haven't already done so. All right, next one is communication. So do you communicate with your students before the first day of class? And if so, what do you share with them?
A welcome and that you're looking forward to see them. You give them a glimpse of what you're going to be doing on the first day. Remind them about the textbooks, and now with the new policies also remind them that if they are choosing in or choosing out or whatever they had to do, and that they should bring some, I sometimes I tell them to bring something that is important for them that they want to show, or if they have a pet or something, a picture or something like that. But basically the reminders for the first day and making sure that they know that you're looking forward to see them and meeting them.
Great, that's excellent. Thanks for sharing. Anybody else?
Everything Marcela said.
We second that.
Ditto what Marcela said.
Okay, Georgina.
One of the things I'm going to try to do this year is, or this next semester, and hopefully by this weekend I can have it done, is have a video where I can actually, send it to them. So it isn't just a text email, it's actually a video, and send it to them and have them watch it. So they'll actually see who I am beforehand.
That's a
Um,
great idea.
Yeah,
always
I like
do-
it.
Yeah, I always do the end of course video where I tell them, yay, you celebrate them and your grades are in, you did great and all that. But I've never thought about doing it at the beginning. I think it's a
Mhm.
fabulous idea.
and yeah, and Joanne Crossman, she's actually going to start using, I don't know if she did it last semester or what, but she's going to use Flipgrid. And I think she uses that right from the get-go too for introductions and having the students, even though it's a face-to-face class, she still uses it and allows them to share out. This is the hybrid class, but I think she still uses it in her face-to-face too. So it's kind of cool for them to be able to share with the video as well. So you do it, bless them. So I think that's really cool. Anybody else? All right. So, just an example, I think Marcella really kind of summed it up really well with kind of an introductory email or video, just given first day logistics, hopes for them in the class, what to expect, letting them know how to contact you and, maybe possibly even sharing the syllabus as well. So those are things that you can do from the beginning. So now I'm going to turn it over to Candace to talk about building classroom community. She's an absolute expert when it comes to the classroom community, building classroom community piece of that.
There is a substantial body of research about classroom community and how it contributes to student success. And I've incorporated one quote here from McKinley et al. And they reported that students' sense of community substantially influence students' satisfaction with the course, with their perception of learning, and their actual academic performance. So, there's something going on here on two levels. One is, if nothing else, for self-preservation in your course evaluations, this is a contributing factor. Whether students are satisfied with your course or not, in part depends on whether they feel like they're welcomed and a part of that community, whether they feel like there's a sense of community. But there's another, and I think for most of you, a much bigger factor, which is you really want your students to be successful. You want them to engage. You want them to feel like they can take academic and intellectual risks. And so being intentional about building that community is critical. It doesn't just happen because in your heart, you love your students. It has to happen because you let them know that not only do you love your students, but that this is a safe place, and you work to build that community. I'll talk about a few strategies that we can use to do that, and we'll address on ground, online, and virtual. If you want to go ahead and advance, Greg. And while I'm talking, you see the little icon or the little graphic in the bottom right-hand corner for annotations. That's just a reminder. Anytime you see that, feel free to go in and use the annotations, put a check mark next to anything that you have used in the past or you would like to use. Put a star if it's a favorite. Feel free to annotate additional ideas and strategies so that we can kind of have a conversation going on and see what you're thinking while I'm talking. So, I am terrible with names. I can learn a name and it's gone the next week. And sometimes it's gone the next hour. And I've always been that way. I think it started when I was a high school teacher and I had to learn 150 names. And at the end of a semester, I would just wipe out that group to make room for the next 150. And it would just kill me when the next semester I'd see a student in the hall, hi, Miss Roberts. And they'd be all excited. I'm like, oh, darn, who is that? Oh, darn, who is that? I know them, but I just couldn't remember the name. So I am really upfront with my students and I tell them, you know what, I am terrible with names, but it's really important to me because I think it's important to be called by name and to feel known. And so I need you to help me. And I'm going to use these crazy tent cards that you probably care less about, but it's for me as much as it is for you. But you know what, there's a few others of you in here probably aren't as good with names either. And so I want those tent cards for everybody. So you're going to bring them back every week. And we're going to put them out there until we're all comfortable. And it usually takes me about a month. to get it down, depending on the size of the class and the frequency of needs and so forth and so on. But the second week when they come back, the first week, I just have them put their names on it. The second week when they come back, I have them add something to it. So it's either a picture, it can be a real picture, it can be, a clip art, it can be a drawing of something that represents them. It can be a picture of their family, or it can be a picture of a book that they love, or a place they like to go, or music, whatever it is. And then at the beginning of the next class, we go around and we talk about why we put what we put on our card. And that it helps us to make connections. So you find out that 3 people in your class love horseback riding, and 2 of them love the beach, and 1 of them backpacks, or they skydive, or whatever. And now people are like, "Ooh, wow, that's cool." And so they're all getting to a certain degree of validation about who they are, and they make connections with each other. I really think this time can't be we can't overestimate the value of it in building that community. And so I always make time for that. And Greg mentioned he does the slides. I do that often also, and I always do it in my online classes, but I always do an about me slide. So I'll include pictures of my family or places I like to go, some things that sort of identify who I am. And then the next week I ask them to, sometimes I use Padlet. Sometimes I just have them post a PowerPoint slide, but everybody has to introduce themselves with some sort of images. And some people don't like pictures. They don't have to use pictures. Again, they can use icons or things that are symbols of who they are. I used to start classes, I'm so excited and passionate about my content, and I think everybody else should be. I have so much that I want to share and so much I want to get through that I just dive in, and I'm, just going at it. And it took me a while to realize that I've kind of left them in the dust and that they haven't fully engaged yet. And so I have to make that time to intentionally build that community, as we said before. Each week I try to get there early, not because I've got papers to arrange or things to get going, but I try to get there early so that I've already done that when they get there. And we have a few minutes to chat as they come in. I love that analogy. Parker Palmer talks about teaching as an act of hospitality. And if you think about throwing a party, or you think about the parties that you've been to, the ones that are the most fun are the ones where you feel connected. They're the ones where the host takes the time to ask you, how are you doing? Like they really care. And they want to know about you or your life or whatever. It's where you actually engage with people. And so that little bit of time before class starts is really invaluable in helping your students feel connected. And of course, it goes without being said in a university where we have community and respect as core values, that we want to establish a community that is mutually respectful and that values varying viewpoints in the context of respect. And particularly if I'm teaching a class that I know is going to have some controversial issues or varying opinions that people might be passionate about, I am very clear on how I will guard each person's dignity, and that we, while I value varying viewpoints, it's how we do it that matters, and that we can have constructive dialogue. And then I'm very quick to step in if things are too heated or not respectful, and we go back to that core value of respect. Next one, Greg. And by the way, that's
a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm so sorry to interrupt, but back on that, your initial slide with the tents, I really appreciate those during the first day of class. Do you have any recommendations for Zoom? Sometimes the name appears on the tile and then sometimes it doesn't. And I have to look at the attendance list to see who's talking. And I'm just wondering if there's a way to make those names appear under their faces, full time. It's so very helpful. Like right now, all your names aren't there, but then in a few minutes, they'll all be there with your little mute buttons on, and I'll see everyone's name. And just wondering if that's like my kind of tent, way to get to know the students. And I'm wondering if there's anything via Zoom to connect them with their name, their face with their name.
You could have them create their own Zoom background. So you see behind us, it says Center for Teaching and Learning Excellence. You could actually have them create their own Zoom background. There is a way to have them, change their name or put their name in Zoom in the settings. Can anybody help out? Anybody on the CETL team with exactly which setting you would go to for that? Is it your profile? We can
Well,
find out for you, Christine. Oh, go ahead, Greg.
I was going to say, if they have to authenticate, then it should show their name automatically. One of the things you may end up, if you only have one screen and you're sharing, then you may not be able to see many of the videos at one time. So it makes it more difficult. So if you have dual screens, then you share on one, like right now, I'm sharing on one screen and I literally have all of your videos on the other screen that I can see. So I can see everybody's face, I can see everybody's name, and I know that. But when you're sharing your screen on one computer, one screen, you can't do all the videos at one time plus do that. So it makes it more difficult.
Yes, I do that side by side gallery, and it seems like the names appear and reappear throughout the course. And I just don't know why it does it. Like when someone's speaking, I'll try to hover over, the name doesn't appear. So I'll go to the list real quick to see whose microphone is, making the green movement.
Mhm.
And I get the name that way.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of changing the background. That's
Yeah.
great. That's a visual cue.
Something else that helps, I think, is if you do the get acquainted slides, they got to put their name on the slide. And so that's something you can go back to. Most students do want to put pictures of themselves or their families or whatever, and I find that to be helpful. I really do study the roster. I have taken pictures of groups. Like if we start the term off with small groups, I'll ask them, if you don't want me to take the picture, I understand, but I'll just use my cell phone and take a picture of groups. They're more comfortable with group than just their individual pictures. And then, and I typically will do it when they have their 10 cards out, when they're, on ground. And I know this doesn't help online, but I'm just saying that I literally will study them because it matters to me that I get their names as quickly as I can, and I'm not good at it. So I have to work at it. But anyway, so we'll talk a little bit more about some other strategies and online in a minute, actually now.
Thank you.
So, in terms of, here's another one that might be helpful, Christine. I use Flipgrid for get acquainted activities in online. I have everybody, that's the first activity they do, is they introduce themselves, and then they have to respond to at least 2 other people to their videos with another video. And they do put their name on their Flipgrid, and that gives me a chance to go in and connect with them and see it in my own time, and and sort of study it. But it's also a great way to get to know your students and them get to know each other. And in my online classes, I frequently have them say, "Well, it's the first time I really felt like I know these people that I've been responding to in the discussion board for all this time," and they really like it. Obviously, it's a no-brainer if you're teaching an online course that you have to be present in that discussion board. I've tried, there have been a few times where I thought, well, my entering the discussion board too early kind of channeled the direction of the conversation. And so I backed off. But I found that there was, the students really kind of felt like I was absent instead of just voyeuring, and watching. And so I do think it's really important that they know you're present throughout the week in that discussion board, and that you are responding to students. You're modeling great feedback and really good, respectful, edifying, validating responses. I think that helps to build that community. And then be sure that you're providing appropriate and varied representation in the graphics and pictures that you're using, so that you're not just, even if you're in an education course, you're not just representing women, even though that may be where most of the pictures are with women, that you're representing different cultures, that you're representing different backgrounds. And just, it's very important that students see in your course that they belong. And so I think more than ever, we should be aware of that and tending to that, and not just expecting people to come and get what we have from where we are, but we're meeting them where they are. Next slide, Greg. These are just a bunch of tools that you can use to engage students, and you do want to engage them early on. Don't wait for that one group activity 3/4 of the way into the semester. Start getting them interacting early on. Whether you're using the grouping tool in D2L or a video tool in D2L or Flipgrid, collaborative note taking. We have a great course on that Daniel developed. You can do collaborative quizzes. They love that. Obviously collaborative projects, discussion boards, sometimes, Google Docs, Microsoft Forms, those kinds of things that allow students to collaborate. So anybody have any other strategies that they use early on that engages students in collaborative work or interaction?
And this is Georgina. I have group projects, I think, in almost all of my courses. And one of the things that I do to establish accountability among the students so they don't wait till the last minute is I have them develop a group charter in week 2. And then the group charter, they establish roles, responsibilities, agreements, and things like that for the actual project. And then as an extension of that, in some courses, I even actually have them submit weekly meeting reports, and the meetings don't have to be formal. They can be a phone call, a text message, just something that shows that they're talking to one another and they're not going to wait till week 7 when the group project is due in week 8.
Excellent. I really like that they're establishing their own ground rules, because obviously they buy into them and they're much more aware of them than you having to police or or set standards. They've done that themselves, and it's a collaborative agreement. So I really like that. Any other collaborative activities that you use to get your students talking to each other and interacting with each other early on in the semester? Okay, well, let's take a look now at, at some Zoom strategies. And I've kind of conflated or combined, as I've talked about online, I've almost made an assumption that you're connecting with your students somehow in Zoom at the same time, but that's not necessarily the case. But there are some other strategies that that are unique to Zoom, and so we'll kind of chat a little bit about those. I do encourage my students to upload instead of just their name showing up on a blank screen on Zoom, if they're not using their video, for goodness sakes, upload a picture so at least it kind of feels like you're there. I really strongly encourage my students to use video. I think it's important. It makes it easier to connect, but I do respect that sometimes some students are adverse to that. So it's kind of a sticky wicket. It's kind of hard to make them. And I've tried, different approaches. I've said everybody's got to, but if you have a concern, please let me know. But then that kind of sections them off, because then when they let you know and they're not using it, everybody knows they got permission, and that's kind of weird. But I just try to make it worth their while. I also try to make it fun. So one of the things that I have found really cool is in terms of Zoom backgrounds, to let them vote on the best Zoom background of the week. So it kind of motivates everybody to, to show up and use their background. And then they get an extra credit point for that. Now, I typically don't give extra credit points if it's just any background, but if they can tie the background into the content for the week, whether it was the reading or the assignment or whatever it was, if they can somehow tie it in, and then we, and then they use that Zoom background and we look at it and ooh and ah, and then different people explain their backgrounds. Well, not only have we reinforced the content, but we've also made it fun for them to, have some sort of graphic representation of it. I am terrible about multitasking. In fact, brain-based learning tells us that it's not even possible. The brain doesn't actually multitask, it just task switches. But I'm bad at it, whatever it is. And so it's hard for me to manage the chat. Like, for instance, right now there's 5 things going on in the chat and I haven't opened any of them yet. And I apologize. Hopefully Greg is doing that and he'll hold me accountable for answering the questions. But in any event, I appoint a chat ninja, and I might ask somebody who wants to be the chat ninja this week. And their job is to monitor the chat so that they can say, hey, Dr. Roberts, and they know they have permission to interrupt me at any point. It never unravels me to be interrupted. I don't care when you interrupt, just jump right in there. And I don't want to wait until 5 minutes later if someone's got a question that's pressing right now or really has to do with this topic. So the chat ninja's job is to do that. And that is also a chance for me to say, I really care about what you have to say and what you're thinking and about you being engaged. And so it doesn't matter to me if you interrupt me, just jump right in. And then Shortly before midterm, I generally do some sort of a midterm feedback, particularly in a 16-week course. In an 8-week course, it would be like at week 4. But I want to find out how they're doing. I want to find out what's working for them and what's not. By the way, on our CTLE website, under the teaching area, we have a place in there for getting feedback from students, and there's a whole bank of questions that you can ask and an explanation about how you can set up a poll. You can do an anonymous poll in D2L. You can also use all sorts of polling features, but you can get feedback from your students about how things are going. And then the following week, I come back with the data and I say, well, this is what you all were thinking. And then I address some of the things that they're concerned about, that they're confused about, that they worry about, that are going well and will keep doing. And it really speaks volumes to them about me caring about whether they're getting it and they're having a good learning experience. Honestly, it also improves your course evaluations for 2 reasons. 1, it says to the students you care. But 2, you get to make mid-semester adjustments if you need to, and then your course gets even better. So it's really a bonus. It's a great strategy, for you on a number of levels. Next one, Greg. And then some more Zoom strategies, just like you would in an on-ground course. Arrive early. Don't arrive just moments before it starts. And let your students know, I'm going to get here 5 or 10 minutes early. If you have any questions, any concerns, I'm also happy to, hang around at the end of class, but this will give us a few minutes to chat. And, just as you would in your on-ground class, show kindness and empathy and care and concern and how are they doing and that sort of thing. They are human beings, as are you, and you want to remind them of that. Greg's done a great job of showing us how to use the Zoom annotation tools and giving us opportunities to interact and respond and be engaged and have a voice. And then, of course, the Zoom breakout rooms is a great way to get them engaged in, in smaller group activities. And the research suggests that, and I haven't done this, but I really do want to try it. Keeping your groups consistent, your breakout groups consistent for the first few weeks, just till they get their footing, and then switch them up so that it's not something new every week. I kind of tend to, I want them to meet as many people as possible, but it seems like the larger the class, the more important this is, because they're never going to meet everybody in a large class, or at least really get to work closely with everybody. So I just thought I would toss that out there as a possibility.
Spark for the beginning of the year, everybody's excited and it's great timing.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you very much. I hope you all have a great beginning of the semester, and definitely let us know if you need anything.